Krishnamoorthi, a Democrat from Illinois. Thank you so much for being with us, Congressman. How do you feel about tariffs on things like cell phones and semiconductors? Do you support those tariffs or are you opposed to those tariffs?
I don't like blanket tariffs at this point. I think it's creating tremendous chaos and confusion. People are actively calling my office, whether they're small business people who are saying that their inputs are going up and their orders are drying up and they're thinking about layoffs, to just average consumers who are saying their prices are going up and, their stock market retirement savings and college savings are plummeting. And basically what we're seeing is blanket tariffs are taxes on hardworking people to fund tax cuts for the wealthiest. And that's really bothering people a lot.
So you oppose blanket tariffs. I'm asking specifically on the tariffs that might be imposed on cell phones and semiconductors, or might have been lifted on smartphones and semiconductors, or might be back on. Are you supportive of tariffs on those items?
I think certain tariffs on Chinese products where there's dumping, where there's economic aggression might make sense. But kind of blanket tariffs on all products, regardless of whether there's any economic aggression that's shown or any kind of behavioral change that we seek to make in other countries, doesn't make any sense. And then the exemptions don't make sense as well, because, we're hearing talk of Tim Cook and Apple making donations to the president's inauguration fund, and that might have helped to spur some of these exemptions. We're hearing of Jensen Huang of NVIDIA attending a $1 million a plate fundraiser, and now there might be export controls relaxed on NVIDIA chips sold to China. That doesn't make sense either.
As we sit here this morning, and it's 9:06 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:06 Central Time, where you are, can you explain what the president's tariff plan is exactly? If I said, tell me in 15 seconds or less what the tariff plan is, what would you say?
I have no idea, except that it appears that it's basically meant to extract revenue in the form of taxes on hardworking families to fund tax cuts for the wealthiest at this point. And that's really what's going on. And I think that is the subtext to kind of this chaos and confusion in the president's tariff policy.
And you said before, there are some tariffs you could support. Can you be specific? Because, again, you're part of the select committee that deals with China. What tariffs on China do you support?
Sure. So for instance, the Biden administration put tariffs on glass, paper, steel, aluminum, electric vehicles, solar panels, products where there is economic aggression being practiced. In other words, dumping, for instance, dumping of products on American markets at prices that are actually lower than the cost of production. And they're intended to basically wipe out their American competition and then allow Chinese producers to monopolize the market. And so in those situations, it makes eminent sense to level the playing field through strategic tariffs. But tariffs on everything, from sneakers to iPhones to consumables, doesn't make any sense. It just hikes prices. And then it leads to the conclusion that really what the president is doing is he's trying to put a tax. He's trying to extract revenue from Americans to fund these tax cuts.
I picked up the Wall Street Journal, as I do every morning, but particularly the last few weeks with everything that's been going on in tariffs. And one of their lead stories is, I have it circled right here, it says, spurned U.S. allies sit out trade war. And what it talks about is that the U.S. now says it's trying to isolate China. With all the tariffs right now, it's increased the tariffs on China, even as it's pulled back on some of the reciprocal tariffs, all of them almost, against other countries. But some traditional U.S. allies that the U.S. would want to join in against China are saying, maybe not right now. What are you seeing on that front, and what are your concerns?
Of course not. Yeah, they're not gonna join in with us right now after we just levied tremendous tariffs on friends, partners, and allies like Canada and Mexico, and we only said that there's a 90-day pause. It's not as though we said we're going to pull back and negotiate at the bargaining table a final agreement. And so, of course, they are going to sit out our efforts to isolate China, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We want our friends, partners, and allies to join in with us to then basically exert pressure on China to follow the international rules of the road with regard to trade and not practice the aggressive economic steps that they're taking to monopolize markets.
All right, Congressman Roger Krishnamoorthi from Illinois, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for being with us. Kate?
So a man has been arrested